Hello garden lovers, Happy New Year. Yeah, Happy New Year to you all. It's a beautiful, crisp, sunny, cold day today. It really is gorgeous. The ground is frozen. In fact, it's been frozen for nearly a week now. And yeah, look at the bird bath. It's got a lovely frosting on it. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Like a cake. And don't worry about the birds because there's water elsewhere, and also I've left all the apples down under the apple trees, and the bird life has been incredible. Anyway, I didn't want to start talking about wildlife. I just went into it, didn't I? So, okay, I've got two videos coming up, and the first one is this one. This is the preamble to the preamble, and that's all about the perennials and grasses going in. And then in a week or so, I'll release the one all about the bulbs. But some people have been asking about the timings of when I'm doing things, which is fair enough, you know, in the gardening calendar and all that, and I totally get it. So these vids are going out a little bit late because we had something called Christmas and the New Year getting in the way, and then I had a bit of man flu, didn't I? Oh, still on the tail end of that. Oh, I'm milking it, don't you worry. And so the perennials and grasses went in before Christmas. We had a mild spell, and yeah, I thought I've got to get them in before Christmas. That was a real aim. And then between Christmas and the New Year, what do we call it? Oh, some people call it betwixtmas. I'm not having that, no. Just between Christmas and the New Year, all the bulbs went in, and that was really time critical. I had to get them in because I wanted to get them in before this real cold snap, and also, you know, it was technically getting on for January, which is quite late. So I just want to quickly say the sort of whole rationale about the seasonal planting. One of the wonderful things about the UK is our seasons and celebrating them. So the idea is that, you know, if there weren't any bulbs in the ground between now and spring, there wouldn't be a lot going on. So the idea is that all the bulbs push through come spring, sort of early, mid, late spring, before the perennials and the grasses take over. And then the perennials and the grasses take over from sort of, you know, late spring into summer, and do their thing all summer, but also take us segue us into the autumn, and then also a lot of them will hold their structure throughout next winter. Now at the moment they're just all underground, but next winter there'll be a lot more to see. So then you're really maximising what you get out of the seasons. And so that is really what the next two videos are about. The first one starts now. This is just, yeah, like the ramble before the ramble, and then there's another ramble in a couple of weeks. So I just wanted to update everybody. But yeah, Happy New Year, and I hope you enjoy this video. Hello garden lovers. Right, it's big planting time of year. I'm a bit late because I've got to get all these perennials and grass in, but it's been very mild, which is good. I've placed a lot of them already. I realised that just sort of talking as I'm doing it is just going to confuse me, because I need to be quite focused about it all, and probably confuse everybody who's watching as well. But yeah, I've placed most of the plants now, and I think what's key is that this is not, you know, it's not fixed in stone. It's fixed in plants, but it's not fixed in stone in any way. And I've been mainly working on, yeah, this area around the path, and I've got a staple of plants, and people get really freaked out about starting, you know, how do I start placing? Well, the only way to do it is to start placing and keep standing back, keep moving around, keep looking at it, and then tweak it, change it. So, you know, yes, you do have to try and imagine what it's going to look like in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. It's never going to be static, but yeah, it's like writers, well, not garden writers, but, you know, novelists say the way to start a book is to start a book. You sit down and you write something, and it's a bit the same way gardening. And people get really stressed out about plants going together or next to each other and everything. Well, I've picked a sort of a palette of plants that is, I don't want to say bland or inoffensive, but I sort of know works together. So the grasses and the perennials are sort of blues, purples, whites, yellows, colours that I like. And I think that's the thing, you know, you can't go wrong with it. You cannot go wrong with colour schemes. If you like something, you like that colour next to that colour, and you can always change it. So I've got a sort of staple selection of plants that I know are pretty tough, that will work together, you know, as far as proportions are concerned. The way I work is not very easy to communicate, explain to other people, because I just like to get all the plants on site and then play around with them quite a lot. So what I do, or what I have done here anyway, normally we draw a planting plan, but I'm not. Agastache Blue Fortune, B, that means a block. Agastache Firebird, block. Amsonia hubrichtii, D, that's a drift. Amsonia orientalis, drift. Anemone, block. Aruncus horatio, block. Baptisia australis, dot. So yeah, so Cephalaria alpina, dot, which just means dotted through the beds. And then we get on to Serrata stigma, plumbaginoides, beautiful plant, edge. So anything with an E, Nepeta, edge, Phlomis along the edge. And yeah, so that helps me slightly organise everything. And then I get painting, really, is how I feel. Yeah, painting with invisible ink. I will be adding plants, more specialist plants, and I think, you know, one year, oh yeah, I could do with a splash of red over there, or, you know, I could do with a bit of this over there, or I'd love to have a rose over there, and then you might move something and you might put it in, and that's gardening for you, and that's the way it works, and that's what's really lovely about it. So, yeah, just try and be confident and just go for it, and just see a gap, and they're going to be some gaps here. A gap is an opportunity in gardening, no doubt about it. So a key plant here, and in fact a plant I had left over from a job, 7 of them, is this, which doesn't look like anything, does it, at the moment? That is Euonymus alatus compactus, and it's got incredible autumn colour, and it stays sort of naturally dome shaped. Yeah, compactus. There is Euonymus alatus that gets a lot bigger, to about 2 or 3 meters, but this stays, I don't know, maybe about sort of 80 centimeters, and it's naturally dome shaped. But what I've done with it is, and I'm trying it out, it might not work. I was looking for something to sort of lead the eye down this path. So I've got one there, there's one over there, there's one there, there's going to be one on the corner there, one behind the corner there. So, but they're not in a straight line, so they're sort of very informal, but they're just dotting down the path, and yeah, they're sort of weaving in and out at the same time. And then I've also put one there, and there's one where you can't see in the distance, right over there somewhere, and there's also going to be one round this corner too. Holding that corner there. Oh look, there's a Christmas tree. So yeah, holding that corner there. And they have an incredible autumn colour. So when they all come into autumn colour, there should be a lovely sort of dotted rhythm through here. It's literally scarlet. And they're also fantastic for bees as well. Now they've got quite a limey leaf, which I think will work with a lot of the plants here. So I don't really have a signature or a trademark style, but I do use Euonymus alatus compactus quite a lot. I also got a lovely hydrangea here that came from Deepdale as well. Hydrangea aspera villosa. And that gets quite big, so that'll hold this corner really nicely. I've already dug the hole for that. I guess another thing I should say while I'm here is that I placed the larger, sort of more structural plants first. So the Euonymus that I talked about earlier, here, you know, here you can see those pots, but also there's Stipa gigantea, which is sort of an airy, tall and airy, early flowering grass, which is fabulous, and it seeds around. But there's one over there, and I've put one over here. and I put one over the other side. So there's 5 of those, and they're sort of trying to just, you know, drift through, and then I'm going to start planting next year over into that area over there. And what else have I used structurally? Some grasses. Well, you can't really see them, but I would call them structural planting because I planted them in 3s and 5s in sort of blocks, but they're in pots and they've been cut back, so you can't see them, but you can see the existing grasses. That's a calamagrostis, one there, there's one there, and there's one through there. Well, not one, they're clumps of 3 actually, and that's sort of what I've done. And then with the tumps that I've got, which are, you know, here and here, and the corners now, that's pretty much the structure. And then once you sort of place those in, you can play around with everything else, just start thinking about heights. It doesn't mean that all the really short stuff goes at the front. You can bring wispy stuff towards the front, but just playing around really and painting pictures with plants. But as Mary Keane said, you know, the perennials and the grasses is a bit like arranging the cushions. You know, once you got all the structure and the architecture in place, it's just arranging the cushions, which I love. Anyway, oh, also, if you haven't read her book, I recommend it. Diary of a Keen Gardener. It's really keeping me entertained. Well, I better get planting. There's a lot of pots, and once they go in the ground, you know, they all look the same at this time of year. It's very hard to remember what has gone on where. And what's lovely about it, I guess, is it's a bit like painting with invisible ink at this time of year. And it's the same with bulbs. So they go in, and then in spring and summer, everything is to be revealed. So yeah, here's a sort of, yeah, well, it's hard to see, but they've been planted Serrata stigma in there, sort of low grower. I've dug the holes for these phlomis that are going around this rock. What I'm trying to achieve here, I guess, is a sort of sense of flow, but informal. So I've got the phlomis, where are they? Here, and I've put them on the other side. And then I've got Nepeta, and they're on the other side. And then as we start looking up here, we move into Amsonia, either side. Some, you know, big clump of Amsonia, big clump of Amsonia, but they're not necessarily directly opposite each other. They sort of flow, and I've done that all the way along this path to really soften it, lead you up it, lead you up the garden path, as it were. This bed from this tump up to the corners is the sort of trickiest bit. In fact, I haven't really had a go at it. We've got bits of Libertia here. This is where the digger was going over, and I'm sort of might leave that a little bit. Oh, look at this! Oh, we've got a lovely winter flowering viburnum here. I moved that. Can't remember exactly where from, but it's covered in flowers now. And it works nicely at the back of this bed. It smells amazing. There's another phlomis there that was already here, but yeah, this bed is the messy bed, big time messy bed. But at least I've started placing some pretty boisterous things through the back here. Things like Aruncus that will just battle it out. There's a Persicaria there that will really battle it out. There's a nice viburnum here to break up the elevation of this fence. Viburnum opulus. You can see the tumps that have all been mulched. They really define them, but I'm going to use the mulch, the bark chips, on all of these beds because I've got loads of it, so it's free. It seems to work really well. You know, it's more of a woodland mulch, but you know what? I think by spring a lot of it will be taken down, and the plants will come through it, the bulbs will come through it, and yeah, I think it'll just work really well as a soil improver and generally sort of finish everything off nicely. So yeah, you can see all the plants dotted on that bank over there, and that's one thing I'm not sure. I'm just sort of leaving me options open. I don't know what to plant right up to that wall, but there's a bit of work to do. And then I have still got a few things like these. You know, they're a verbena. Then they just get dotted through.
I've got to be careful where I tread here, because I've planted some Amsonia through here. You can see the flow mists that have gone in around there that are going to soften the edge of the paving and, yeah, sort of turn this rock into an island, I guess. And then here, it's hard to see on the camera, but this is one of those euonymus Elatus compactus, which is going to, you know, get about this sort of size over time. So what I don't want to do is plant any perennials unless they're really low growing underneath them. So I've got Amsonia around the back, the flow mist around the front, and there's also Serrata stigma, which is quite low through here. But that's where plants like this come in really handy. This is Violet labradonica, a violet, and it flowers with blue, sort of purpley blue flowers in April, May, and a little bit sporadically through the summer as well. And it's a great little filler plant. I use it quite a lot. It's got a lovely purple underside to the leaf, and yeah, we're in December now, it's still got foliage on, and it will self-seed all over. It's one of those, it's sort of once you got it, you can't get rid of it really. But for me, it's great. So it'll just self-seed in a few cracks around little edges. And for something like here, where I just want a little something to break up between the euonymus and this slab here, it's absolutely perfect. So I've got about 50 of them, I think. I can't remember actually numbers wise. And I just dot them in every now and then, and it will just grow low. And so you need little fillers like that, ideally, you know, otherwise you've got all your bigger stuff, and then you need stuff that's just going to self-seed. In fact, a lot of these plants are going to self-seed around, and that's great, because if they're self-seed and they grow where they seeded, it means they're happy, which means I'm happy. And so I sort of imagine this tapestry sort of becoming an organic, or taking on a life of its own really, and all these plants seeding around. Okay, so did a lot of planting yesterday, and it chucked it down sort of late afternoon. So I legged it, and it rained all night pretty much, and today's dry, and then we got a lot more rain coming in, so I really want to get this planting, well, finished. Now you see these little, well, they look like sticks, but actually they are bits of the Millennia transparent grass, which I cut down, and the other two sort of fell over, so I snipped them, and I'm using them to mark where I've planted some perennials and a few grasses. And yeah, I did have a few sticks knocking around, but I used them, and I thought this is genius, because these are sort of just gonna, they're just gonna, you know, biodegrade and compost. So yeah, I'm carrying a little bucket around, you know, with a few little bits of grass. And anyway, enough chat, I've got to get on with the planting before it chucks it down again. And then of course, there's all the bulbs to go in, which I think will be on a separate video. Right, well, we've got a lot of plants in the ground. I say we, because Kath did help me for an hour or two. Been a lot of graft. Planting is a lot of graft, there's no way around it. There is no way around it, there's no easy way. You got to dig holes, you got to, you know, bend down, you got to plant them, you got to get them in the ground. But it's looking good, quite pleased with it. I'm a bit of a messy gardener, I'll have a good tidy up. Yeah, so this, just going back to this euonymus, which is a load of twigs at the moment, some of them are a little bit two-dimensional in shape, so they look flatter from one side than another. So the orientation is quite important, because I'll be mainly looking from them walking up and down the path. So I've sort of got the width, the widest point facing me, as it were. Also, I've talked about this in the past. I'm not, well, it's not a no dig garden whatsoever, but I'm not digging deeply at all. But once I've planted, I am flicking over the soil, I reckon to a depth of about maybe just 2 or 3 inches, because you've trodden on the soil. There's an area I've trodden on, you can see, and yeah, if you just give it a bit of a flick over, it means, well, it doesn't get all cloggy, the water can drain through, the air can get to the roots of the plants, and the worms are fantastic. The worm population, especially in this area here, is amazing, and this was all sort of built up ground. So, and even in the other part as well, the worms are really doing a great job. And I talked about, yeah, using this bark as a mulch and talking about how it retains moisture, but it also improves drainage, which sort of sounds like a contradiction, but it isn't, because it opens up the soil. And like I said, it acts as a sponge, so it holds moisture, but also the worm population are, you know, they're burrowing lots of little aeration holes all the way through here, which improves drainage. So I've got that done. I've clipped back some plants, like those gaura. I clipped those back. That's the new growth on the gaura. I'd normally leave that all on, but it just helps me see the spaces and the spacing and the gaps. Here, I think I haven't planted over this side yet, but I think I'm going to cut it back, these Iris Iberica, again, just to see what's going on and get a bit of weeding going on in between there. This is quite wild and messy through here, which I like, but again, I'm going to have to get stuck in there. And then I've got more planting to do around this side, but I'm really getting on with it. And there is no way around it. It is just graft. And fortunately, I've got a nice day. So I'm working on the dry days between the really wet days. You can see these Amsonians have gone in there. Those are the existing grasses. I've shifted around these Echinacea. I've still got some planting to do through there. These Cicericium are all seeded. Around here, still got more planting to do. That Euphorbia mellifera has actually done really well. The hydrangea is going to go in that hole. Then I've got those Brunnera, which I lifted, and I'm going to bring them around this side. And actually, this is a really nice view coming on from here across there. Bulbs are going to be really interesting because I've got about 1,000. Well, about 1,000 big bulbs. Well, not big bulbs, but you know, bulbs. And I've got maybe like 500 crocus or something, which I'm just going to sort of chuck in very informally. I'm going to spend a bit of time on the placing. But I've calculated on the back of a fag packet that, say, I can plant 5 a minute. You know, with using the auger on the drill bit, 5 bulbs a minute. That is 300 an hour. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. 300 an hour. So the whole thing should only take me about 3.5 hours. See, you got to be positive motivation. And once I get going, yeah, you know, might be able to really bosh them out. Some of the soil's really soft. Some of them don't need to go that deep. But it is the placing. Anyway, that's on the next video. We'll see if my calculations come true.